Everyone. I'm going to call our meeting to order. This is the March 6, 2024 meeting of the Assembly Legislative Committee. We're noticed from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. We're here in City Hall, room 155, and also have at least one member on the phone as well as folks in the room. So let's go ahead and start with introductions.
Karen Bronga.
Zach Johnson.
Anna Brawley. And then on the phone, we have Felix Rivera.
Present.
And any members on the phone?
Hey, Miss Brawley, this is Scott. I just jumped on.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Member Myers. And we also have in the room our Legislative Services Director, as well as Legislative Services staff, Clerk's Office, Mia Costello, the Legislative Liaison for the Mayor's Office, and then I'll also shortly, but not right now, invite up our Acting Director of SWS when we get to that item. Okay, so we are going to give some updates, and then we have time to discuss kind of pending legislation or current bills before the legislature. First, we'll go ahead and do unfinished business, which is giving updates from our AML Winter Conference. And the three of us in the meeting today who were there, so I'll give a brief update, and then I'll just turn to others to add what they would like to. Let's see. Essentially, we traveled down the Alaska Municipal League Conference the week of February 19th. There were four of us there, myself, Member Johnson, Member Rivera, and a couple meetings ago with the Assembly, we had at least 30 meetings with folks, members, or their staff. We hosted a dinner for the Anchorage delegation legislators and had good participation there on Tuesday night, and had really great conversations about our legislative priorities, which we shared with all of the members who we met with, Anchorage members as well as others. So productive, also had a great conference, was able to connect with other folks from local governments. And then, of course, they're tracking a lot of the same bills that we are, as well as, any bill that really affects local government. So staying updated there. And then we'll dive into, pause there and see if there's other updates. And then I'll turn to Member Rivera first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you just want me to talk about the AML conference?
Yeah, that'd be great. Just anything to share.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. No, I think overall, I think the conference itself and then our visit with legislators went fairly well. I think, as the chair stated, we had a chance to talk with a lot of different legislators, both legislators within the municipality of Anchorage, as well as legislators outside of the municipality of Anchorage, in some key positions on both the Senate side and the House side. We, at least in all the meetings that I was a part of, we pretty much stuck to kind of talking points with folks, mainly aligned with our legislative program and the four main priorities in there. And then spoke to resolutions that we had passed. So, I think, in my opinion, I think we were pretty careful in everything that we stated with our legislators to make sure that it was all in line with what the majority of this body had voted on and decided. I think there are some remaining follow-ups that we are completing with various legislators that had asked us some questions, and we committed to following up with them. I think in the end, we'll continue to, from my perspective, we'll continue to get a pulse to see how in particular, Anchorage delegation moves forward with what I think were our top two requests, which were the $4 million for extending CWS, our cold weather shelter, and then $10 million for Housing Alaska's public-private partnership, which is statewide. We'll have in the municipality. It was important for us to advocate for that as well. So, it'll be curious to see how the Anchorage delegation moves forward with those requests. And I think, as the chair has alluded to earlier, there's probably going to be an opportunity for us to go back to Juneau at some point to continue our advocacy, because I think our delegation probably it'll be a good idea, I think, for us to keep going back and keep talking to folks as all of the behind the scenes stuff evolves. Okay, I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Member Johnson, do you want to add anything?
I think it was a good synopsis. I just would like to say thank you to Anna and the staff that did all the work kind of planning and then handling the logistics of that. And then it's not here, but certainly a big shout out to legal assistant Brandy Heasley for coming down to Juneau and helping us out there. All really helped it go very smoothly. So thank you all.
Yeah, thanks very much. And then we will be kind of going over some of the more specifics, follow-ons out of that, but we'll get through that on other parts of the agenda. And just to note in particular, we'll be following up. There was a question about basically more information about our shelter request and what the city is doing around homelessness, city and our various partners, and also just kind of how it fits into the big picture around housing and what the plan is long term. So we're preparing that. But certainly if members are talking to your legislators, we'll make sure to circulate that to all assembly members as well, just as FYI. So make sure you're sharing that as well, because we all want to have a united front on this. So that's great. Then we're going to move into new business. We have just a number of updates, and then we can have some conversation on bills. And then we may have a call in from our lobbyist. Sorry. Oh, okay. Great. So we will hold on an update from them until we give some of these other updates, and we'll move into. So in terms of updates, just so folks are aware, first item A here, we have our NLC, that's the National League of Cities Conference. It's the federal equivalent of Alaska Municipal League, more or less. So they are having a conference and congressional fly-in starting next week. And so myself, Member Constant, are going to participate in that and to advocate to our federal delegation, as well as Member Zalatel will be there, not with her assembly role, but she's going as a member of the Anchorage and homelessness. So she will also be there for a separate trip, but our time will overlap. So we'll have a chance to meet with our federal folks as well as of HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Agency. So we'll continue our advocacy there. Next, I'll mention just some updates on assembly resolutions, mostly things that we did last night. So the March 5th assembly meeting passed 3 different resolutions around, 2 of them around state issues. One was supporting House Bill 89, which has to do with childcare assistance. So that one is moving through the legislature, and we would like to support that, and we did. And then also House Bill 100, which has to do public employee and leave, family leave. And so we also passed that one. We'll be sending final copies of those to the sponsors of those bills, as well as to the relevant committees. And then also we passed a resolution that is will be hopefully making its way to DC right now, which is supporting a $45 million funding request for the abandoned property project, which is to get an EDA grant, Economic Development Administration grant to basically turn around some of our abandoned properties in town. It's a joint project with the Anchorage Community Development Authority, AWW, our water and wastewater utility, the Municipal Planning Department, and another department. So working together on that. So great to see that one moving forward. Other just brief updates. Let's see. So one of the big issues, and we happened to be there right when it was in the thick of it, was SB 140. So that was the Senate education bill, originally dealing with internet access for schools, but has included other things, including an increased education funding, provisions around the Alaska Reads Act, and really multiple pieces. So we know that it passed the House, and it also passed the Senate. It is now sitting with the governor. So really just that's something for members to be aware of. And it's also partly relevant for an item that will be on our next agenda, which is the Anchorage School District budget. So I would encourage, if you have questions about the education bill or about budget, I would encourage reaching out to the district and school board members. They're tracking it way more closely than I am, as well as to the folks in the legislature who are tracking it. But that's just something to be aware of that we are tracking. The other thing is just that, again, we have been advocating for our $4 million for the shelter that's currently operating under municipal funding during the summer months. So I think I mentioned that one already. And then I'm just seeing, I guess one other thing that we passed at our prior meeting, but before this committee met again, was support for funding from the legislature to the Hmong American toward, and then also they will be asking for state funding. So that was also addressed. And I think those were the main things we wanted to offer so far. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, not seeing any. And I should note also, folks on the phone, I will try to monitor my text, but feel free to jump in if I'm not reaching you in time. Okay, so next let's move on to our main agenda item, which is item C, discussing bills of interest and potential action. So we have a few specific items. But before we go there, I will turn to our, I understand our lobbyist is on the phone, so we'll get a brief update from them.
Yes.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Please
Hello,
give a
Member
brief
Brawley.
update.
Hello, Member Brawley and Assembly members. This is Wendy Chamberlain in Juneau. Good to talk to you all. Well, it's been a busy week, and it's been a week of ups and downs. But as you said, Anna, that the legislature did pass the education bill, SB 140. I think the big thing to look at is the BSA increases in there at $680 BSA. The cost for that was $174 million. Pupil trans was in there. Correspondence rate from 90% to fully funded 100%. A school position was in there, not the charter school the governor wanted, but a charter school commission. Of course, the internet bag change was in there to 100 megabytes. And then a reading improvement plan. Total cost, I think that's the big thing to look at. Total cost is $241 million as it stands today. As you know, the governor has come out fairly strongly and said he doesn't support the bill. He has another week, I think it is. He had 15 days, so we're counting down, but he had 15 days to either let it go into law, sign it, which is a definite no, to let it go into law without his signature, or to veto it. Veto it, now the veto override votes there. You know, depending on who you talk to, some say yes, some say no. It's not as strong a threshold to veto what he needs. To override his veto, they need 40 votes. Senate out of 60, a little bit lower threshold than an appropriation, which they need 45. So it's a little risky on both sides. What I understand as of today is an agreement is being worked on. Of course, that could all fall apart. Our senators, Wielechowski, several of them are very involved in working the agreement. I understand the agreement is going to have some of the governor's things in it. There's going to be teacher bonuses in it. And there's going to be charter school changes in it, although not all the charter school stuff that he wanted. So it's a negotiation right now. And the agreement for the negotiation is going to revolve around the BSA. So basically what it'll probably they're working on to say, if we give you these things you want, will you not veto the BSA amount down? So that remains to be seen. If it does not happen, it'll be a very close vote here in the House and Senate. So members are hoping that something comes together which will reach a consensus that appeases both sides on that. Looking at recently last week, legislative finance came out with an update on the budget. Of course, saying that means that we don't have the new revenue forecast that is due out, the oil forecast March 15th. We're hoping to see a slight uptick, but we need a significant uptick at this stage here, because based on the budget today and based on the education funding needs, other needs out that's going to pass, and it's another 23 million. The Energy Authority Electrical Grid Grant, it needs at least 30 to 35 million. Organizations need money for employees, and Marine Highway has a shortfall of 38 million. So when I'm talking to senators, basically they're saying to me, Wendy, there's very little money left on the table, very, very little. We may have to, the thing that they don't want to do is getting 3 votes to draw from savings. And I think you all understand they're struggling in the House. So to try and get a 3/4 vote in the House will put a lot of pressure on you freshman members and the House caucus. So I think they're trying to balance a budget without needing a draw. If that is the case, there'll be a minimal capital budget. There's an agreement to deal with some of this education funding. And so a lot of moving pieces out there right now. Was interesting. There's a lot of bills we're following, and I talked to Nils this morning. And just to give you some idea, as of today, 148 bills, House and Senate, over the last 2 years been introduced. So this session, we're looking at bills totaling this legislative 2 years. That's this year and last 48 are in play, and only 32 of them have passed to date. So it's going to be a very, very light legislative year. I think some of that revolves around the fact that there is no money, so most bills have some sort of fiscal impact. The Finance Committee is very reluctant to pass any on impact. We're looking at things like Renewable Energy Fund, that'll need money, and energy for the Cook Inlet. Kathy Giesel's got a bill, Rauscher has a bill, 4 bills out there right now. I think you'll see that merged into one bill. And here are the issues they need to address. Clean energy, 1, transmission, 2, gas storage or gas shortage, 3, and then the AEA board makeup changes, 4. They're the 4 things on the table right now. I think you'll see some sort of compromise bill come together, maybe on the House side, and send it over to the Senate. So everything's moving. Energy's front and center right now, getting to closing out the operating budgets on the House. Pretty status quo budget. Education's behind us unless the veto comes up. So now next thing up is energy. We'll be addressing energy, then we'll go to operating budget bills, and then we'll go to capital budget. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Okay, thanks so much, Wendy. Are there any questions from members? Okay, Claire Ross, go ahead.
Hi, Wendy, it's Claire. I have a question about SB
Claire.
77, the blighted building. I take it is that still stuck in House rules?
It is stuck in House rules. So here's the thing on that one there. It's going to pass. And so it passed the Senate, as you know, fairly convincingly. When you look at its committee do pass reports, it passed out a CR with 9 do passes, majority minority. It passed out of finance or its next committee with 5 do passes. So already on record, without ever looking at anybody else, just in committee, there's 14 do pass votes for that bill. It's easy to get passed, but again, Claire, let me just say it's part of the negotiation. So, and I've got to say, Senator did an amazing job at being part of the team, being part of everything. So I expect that bill to pass, but it's just a process where the Senate's not going to schedule House bills. The House won't schedule Senate bills right now.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I don't think we have any other questions in the room, but certainly just to emphasize what Wendy said, we're waiting to hear the revenue forecast. We know it's going to be a tight year money-wise for the state, so we're realistic about our asks, but that's really going to be the critical time when we know, and what legislators reported to us as well, is then they'll know kind of how much room there is in especially the capital operating budget.
Yes, and your legislators have done a great job, so just keep it up, gang. You're doing a great job prioritizing for them, letting them know what you want. They're ready, provided there's money.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, I think we can move on then to, we had a few kind of specific items. Well, actually, but before I go there, I'll turn also to Mia, the legislative, see if you have any kind of broad updates you want to give.
Thank you. So just to dovetail on what Wendy said, one of our emerging priorities was Cook Inlet gas. House Resources had a really good meeting this week, and we're asking that the staff present to the South Central Mayors Energy Coalition next week on a review of what's going on. But There's multiple bills that have been introduced recently, royalty relief, Cook Inlet seismic access is out there, credit, reserve-based lending, and then one on overriding royalty and interest. There's a bill for investing in the North Slope pipeline, and then there's a bunch of renewable bills, as Wendy mentioned. So that was really interesting, and if you're interested in that committee, it's worth just going in and listening to that presentation. The only other thing that I have, and I'm not sure if it should go under the federal section, but the congressional designated spending portal is up for Representative Peltola's office, and that closes March 22nd. And then Senator Murkowski's will open on Friday.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions for Mia? Okay, sounds good. Then let's move on. We have, like I said, a couple specific items. So I'll just briefly run through a couple of them, and then we'll get to the SWS item. First is just to mention one of our priority asks is actually not funding to the community, but to the Alaska Housing Trust, the Housing Alaskans Public-Private Partnership. So that is something, another follow-up we're working on. We anticipate seeing that on the March 19th agenda, a resolution just supporting that ask of $10. So there was a resolution the Assembly already passed supporting creation of the trust, which happened, but it was not fully funded. So I know, Mr. Rivera, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, I think you covered it.
Thank you. And the other to talk about briefly, I don't see Member Cross here. I just wanted to note he brought an item. I guess I'll just bring it, but then if Kevin's not here, then we'll move on. So there was something we had on our agenda last night as an informational item. It was from Birchwood Community Council. It was a support of essentially routing the Alaska Long Trail, which is a project that's been in the works for a while, that would be a trail that goes through a big part of the state, but includes Anchorage. So they are asking for a route that essentially goes through or near Chugaki or wherever. So I know Member Cross wanted this to be discussed. I don't know if he was pursuing an Assembly position on this. I do know that the Assembly passed a resolution in 2022 supporting the Alaska Long Trail for its economic and recreational. So certainly we've already supported that. And I don't see us doing a 180 on that. But I guess I'll mention that for now. And then if other folks are interested in potentially taking a specific position on that or supporting this route request, then I would refer folks to Member Cross. And Member Myers, I don't know, since you're the other Eagle River person, I don't know if you want to comment on this one or if you have other stuff you wanted to add.
No, Member Brawley, thank you. Though I will let Kevin take the lead on that when he's back on. He's been the one having the conversations with those folks, so I don't want to misquote anything.
Okay, thank you. And I know he also made a request, I believe, to the Transportation Committee, so we may be discussing that at a future time. I don't know when that committee's meeting next, but that will be the next opportunity. Okay, so then we'll move on from that one. And then we also, of course, have time for other bills. I'll briefly mention on election issues. We know there's multiple election bills. We're not going to discuss them in detail today, but we are tracking that. We're working closely with our clerk's office. I know for some of the bills that are in play, there are provisions in there that actually are things that we are already doing in Anchorage to keep our elections safe and secure. And so those were recommendations made to the state. So I'm not the best contact for that, but I know we've been working on that one. But just to note, we'll stay informed about how those move forward. As we understand it right now, I believe they're in Senate State Affairs Committee. And then with that, I think we'll move on to our next item, which is SB 102. So I'm going to invite Ms. Toth to come up. And so essentially this was a request that came through Municipal League. So they track a lot of bills that impact local governments. And often they will reach out just to ask for information of Anchorage and other cities and boroughs. How might this affect you? Knowing that there's a lot of different forms of local government and all those things. So this bill, Senate Bill 102, is it would basically put solid waste or refuse utilities under RCA approval, which is the Regulatory Commission of Alaska. So I believe AWU is under that, and things like electrical utilities, they have to have their rates approved. Our utility and solid waste services utilities are not under that now. So that was a request from AML just to ask for information. I certainly am not qualified to answer questions, so I reached out to SWS and other members who have been here longer. So we invited Ms. Toth to come. So if you can introduce yourself, and then before you get into the bill, maybe just describe how our rates are approved or regulated at all, and then we can get into discussion. Thanks. So go ahead.
Thank you, Kelly, members of the committee. Kelly Toth, Acting Director for Solid Waste Services. And just some background to your question about how we're structured. It's very unique in that we are a municipal-owned enterprise utility, which means we are not funded or supported by the tax base. We're actually self-funded by ratepayers and those that, and what's unique about it, and some people, it's nice to have the opportunity to clarify that Solid Waste Services manages the landfill, also the central transfer station and the Girdwood transfer station. That's on the disposal side of our house. The other function that we have is the collections. And so Solid Waste Services has a mandatory service area in a very specific area in Anchorage in our city. So we do have both of those functions. And that's where the information is interesting with regard to this bill, SB 102.
Thanks. And then I'll also see if other members have questions. But in the meantime, can you clarify then? Because I believe I personally am outside of SWS's service area. So can you clarify for folks who don't live in that area how we interact with the landfill?
So through the chair, Member Brawley. I don't know how formal we're. Sorry.
You don't have to be that formal. It's
Thank
all
you.
good. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what was the question again? Okay, for people that are outside of the service area, including myself, so I have, as others do outside of our defined service area, we pay a commercial hauler. So it's a private owned hauler who comes to pick up our recycling and our refuse, our trash. And so in our service area, within the Anchorage service area, all the mandatory service is they pay for their curbside trash pickup, but their recycling is free. So every single person in our mandatory area gets a free recycling, and then they pay for. That's the difference between a private hauler. It's interchangeable. We say private hauler or commercial hauler versus our own internal solid waste services collections aspect.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. And then do any members have questions on kind of how it works now? Okay. Not seeing any. So yeah, why don't we get into then your understanding of the bill?
Thank you. So in the testimony that occurred in Labor and Commerce on Monday, what I understood after watching the exchange is that the RCA does oversee other utilities, and they clarified that this bill does not have any on landfill operations. And when asked the question about collections, the answer was it would affect collections. However, the intent of the bill, as I understand it, is really to clarify and make quite transparent the rates that people choose to put out there as far as farmers on the private side. And also it will make it faster for them to be able to get the turnaround for the filing periods for the quarterly. So it creates a public process. People are able to have a public process and have all of that. And then also to have more transparent the operation side and what they decide to set as a rate. And part of what we didn't address earlier is have it right now, which is the assembly as the appropriating body for Anchorage, for the city, you set the rates. And so that's where the difference is that right now Anchorage is the one who oversees and sets rates for solid waste services. And you've done that. You've actually projected out and set the rates for solid waste services through, it was like a 5 years I've seen in that table that's in our ordinance that's set by you, appropriating body. If it went under the RCA, then it would go through the RCA. I don't know how that works with how you would then come into it, but really the idea was for haulers to be able to have a process, more public process. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, thank you. And so just to say as well, so we have not taken a position on this bill. Obviously, as I said, it was brought to our attention because we have a refuse utility. And so we are contemplating whether to take a position on this or really just how do we best communicate kind of the impacts that it would have on our city. So so I know one option is that we have a resolution, but I wonder, I don't know if Mia, you and I had a conversation offline as well. So I don't know if you have recommendations or if the administration has dug into this as well.
Oh, thank you, Chair Browley. So I think we've been talking with our lobbyist and also with Kelly and at this point, we're watching the legislation and believe that perhaps a letter that impacts might be the best route to go, because that letter we could ask to have follow the bill, so that anyone who's considering voting on it would know what the position is really. And also Wendy might want to weigh in on this also.
Yeah, go
So
ahead, Wendy.
I did reach out. Yes, Member Brawley. Thank you. I did reach out to the staff and Senator Bjorkman's office and said, do you intend to hear this bill again? They said they could, but right now their schedule is very heavy and they have numerous things up, and this is its first committee of referral. So I will, if you're going to hear it again, we'd like to have input. Their suggestion was that we send our letters and information to the committee and let them know the concerns we have, because at this late stage, they really don't have time to spend a lot of time working on a bill when it's first committee of referral. So they get that, they will then have a look. But at this stage here, it's not scheduled for a hearing. And I've talked to Mia and we think that it's probably beneficial to write a letter with our concerns outlined to the chairman, so that if perchance it comes up again unexpectedly, those will be on the public record and we'll be able to then have input into the changes needed.
Okay. Any thoughts from members on this? Go ahead, Member Johnson.
Yes, I guess I would ask, this would obviously be an additional regulatory compliance that SWS would have to take on, another hoop to jump through, if you will. And intuitively that had some costs to SWS. Has there been any effort to kind of quantify what the impact would be and what it might mean for ratepayers, since ultimately whatever will get passed on to them?
Thank you for the question, Member Johnson, through the chair. So we have not quantified that impact. We're right now just taking a look at how is that impacting other utilities particularly, and what is the impact. But we know absolutely it's going to add an added layer of the process.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Oh, go ahead, Member Bronca.
So I guess I just never thought of Alaska Waste as a private. So that private company, it's kind of like either your Alaska Waste or Solid Waste Services, but they're using that landfill of yours. And so this is kind of what this bill would do, is put that under a rate and that everybody follows. Is that what, I'm just trying to track this because I hadn't heard about this at all.
So Member Bronca through the chair. So the way that would look, so a private hauler they charge their customer. So like if you have and you're outside of the mandatory service area, you pay a rate to that commercial hauler. Included in that, or however the private business is structured for their pricing structure, They come and they pick up your trash, they take it out to the regional landfill, they pay a tipping fee. So they have to pay a disposal fee, and that fee is also paid then to solid waste services, to the utility. So they set their rates, they pay the disposal fee. What this bill would do is really, and how it would impact solid waste services is you all are setting and helping to set the rates, the appropriating body for the collection. So the other part of what we do, and that's the piece that would be impacted by this bill, is the function of collections and how that rate structure is set.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Just checking see if there's any on the phone. Okay, yeah, then I think that sounds like a great next step is to prepare better. So I guess I'll just ask Mia and Kelly if you could follow up on that, and then just I don't think assembly members would need to sign it or anything because we wouldn't be taking a position on the bill, but if you could make that available, and then we're staff to just make sure that gets communicated. And then in the meantime, I'm going to ask our staff to reach out to AML and just give it the short version, which is we have a lot of concerns about this. We're writing them down and we will share it because they wanted to get that feedback. Okay. Yeah. And thank you so much for being here. Okay. And then I think the rest of the agenda, unless I'm missing something, is really just if there's other kind of questions or issues people want to bring up. Okay, I'm not seeing any at the moment. I guess also I'll ask Mia, are there other kind of bills or issues that we haven't touched on today that you guys are tracking or aware of?
Not that I can think of at the moment. We've had that conversation about the 4 million, and we're really focusing on trying to get that support, and appreciate all your efforts in that too.
Go ahead, Claire.
I really and the administration are working on some follow-up information on the shelter, the data, and some of the background plan that the legislators are asking for. So I think I could package it in a way and send it out to assembly members for you then to send to your individual senators and representatives. It'd be kind of doubling up, but just making sure that you're having contact. So we have 12 contacts going out individually as well. So I'll prepare that once all the information's ready.
Yeah, that would be great. And because we know there might be follow-on questions too. And then one thing that we'll include in the follow-ups is, as we said, it's really putting the shelter funding request in context, like all the work that we've been doing, the focus on housing, and the really, really critical need for that funding. And so we're also going to include contact information for a lot of the other agencies who are really working in that, like Covenant House, AHFC. So that way, if there's follow-ups on their programs, then we're not trying to answer it for them. So, because I think it's there is a lot going on, and so I think it's hard unless you're tracking it closely to understand kind of how much happening and how many housing programs there are. So, that's hopefully the story we can tell. Okay, I don't think we have any other items, but I'll just note that I guess 2 reminders for members. One is, of course, if there is anything to discuss, you can always bring it to this committee. Our next meeting will be early April. Meeting after that will be early May. Those are as we assume, the last 2 meetings during legislative session. So, we'll I'm sure a lot will happen between now and then. But then to also note if there are any support or opposition resolutions that you want to put forward on a specific item, that if at all possible, I would recommend getting them on the agenda for March 19th. And the reason is, especially for funding requests, if there's anything, even if it's local project that you really want to elevate or have more visibility on, that the earlier we do those, the better. So it doesn't mean we can't do something to kind of put that in people's minds.
And Member Bradley, could I just ask something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the Anchorage legislators, a lot of them are coming back for hearings this week, constituent hearings. If we can just, if you're talking to legislators at any time, please emphasize the critical need for our $4 million, because I think squeaky wheel gets the grease. And at this stage here, I think the more we let Anchorage legislators know, we absolutely have to have it as they fight for the minimal dollars that are going to be out there. I just think your voices are very strong, and if you could do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And just to reiterate, she's referring to why there's multiple constituent events happening this weekend, but for sure, the Anchorage delegation is hosting a town hall, which they do, I believe, every year. It'll be Saturday, March 9th March 9th from 2 to 4 p.m. on UAA campus, I believe in Cuddy Hall. Parking is free. They'll have refreshments. I'm quoting off of the flyer that they've been circulating. And it out to members. And then I'm personally going to post it on my own social media, partly because I can't be there, but I want to make sure people know it's happening. So I would encourage just getting the word out however you can. And that is a great reminder, Wendy, that that whether it's us showing up or folks that we know will be there, just reminding their funding is really important, in addition to the other kind of more local priorities that you'd like to discuss as well.
Yes, yes. And I think any emails you can with them, just so they're constantly on their mind. Anchorage needs this, Anchorage needs this 4 million. So I think that's great. Thanks, Member Brawley.
Yeah, thank you very much for the reminder. Oh, go ahead, Claire.
I have a question, maybe for Ms. Costello. It seems like a lot of the things that we want are going to be decided at the very 11th hour, and we might not have much. And Wendy will be down there in Juneau, but we might not have much of an opportunity to like do that final app. Think about how to coordinate between Wendy being down there and the mayor, and Anna, if you're Chair Brawley, if you go down again, just kind of coordinating for that 11th hour push in the final weeks.
Yeah, that's a good thought. We have not, or at least I haven't scheduled another trip down there, but be flexible. And Mia, I know you had mentioned the mayor's going soon. Is that right?
I'll be going down March 18th for the unveiling of Don Young's portrait on the second floor. I guess, a consistent communication is probably a really good idea, so that, our key members are armed with the information and are working their colleagues prior to the end of session rush, I think would be really good. So I think what we're doing is good. And I think the communication we'll be sending out this week about the 4 million for the homelessness is a good timing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and just a reminder too, if you're there, but that's something that you could also use your personal budget on, as long as it's city business. There's no scheduled trip down there, but that is an opportunity. Or if you happen to be there for other reasons, you're welcome to spend some time there as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we had in terms of priorities. So again, we will be hopefully sharing back some good news on our federal trip pretty soon. And of course, we are tracking a lot of the things. So, and please always feel free to reach out to staff too, because I know staff, there's the bills that we've talked about today, for example, and there's a longer list of bills that we're at least monitoring, knowing that they have some impact on the municipality if they do move forward. So if you have questions or just want to see if something's on our radar, please feel free to tell Jennifer and Claire. So, okay. And I also want to say, especially to Rachel Henke, who is staffing the legislative committee meeting for the first time. So I know you're not brand new, but I'm glad to see you here in this room. So, okay. With that, if there are any other comments or questions, not seeing any, not hearing any on the phone, then we will adjourn. Thank you.
Bye.